So hello all, and thank you for being here for One Art's October 2025 reading. I can't believe it's October, but somehow it is. If you're on the East Coast here, in the general Philadelphia area, it is 80 degrees today, which never used to happen. So, no comment, but that didn't used to happen. We'll just stick with that. Uh, so again, I appreciate everyone being here and much gratitude to all who donated. Um, so please consider sticking around after the featured reading and we'll spend about 30 minutes doing community time and we can have a Q&A discussion with our featured poets if they can stick around. And we can also just talk about life and wearing glasses or not wearing glasses and the state of things, the state of poetry. I keep trying to think of like some sort of literary community state of the union. So our featured poets today are Susan Rich and Shawn Aveningo-Sanders and Faith Shearin. First up, we have Susan Rich. Susan is the author of 6 collections of poetry and co-editor of 2 prose anthologies. Her most recent books include Blue Atlas from Hen Press, Gallery of Postcards and Maps, new and selected poems from Salmon Poetry. Susan co-edited Demystifying the Manuscript, creating a book of poems, and that's out from 2 Sylvias Press, and Strangest of Theatres, Poets Crossing Borders, affiliated with Poetry Foundation. Susan's previous poetry books include Cloud Pharmacy, The Alchemist Kitchen, Cures include Travel, and The Cartographer's Tongue, Poems of the World, which won the PEN USA Award. Also, Birdbrains, a lyrical guide to Washington state birds, is forthcoming from Raven Chronicles Press. It's exciting as a birder. Susan, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Faith and Sean, my fellow readers, and to everyone for coming. And I love that you said you're a birder. I think I'm beginning to understand that everybody is a birder to some extent, or a birder to be, especially because I'm a fairly newbie birder. But it'll be fun when that comes out and I can get to talk about birds and putting that together. But it's not here yet. So I will say that I first sent my poems to One Art based based what's the word 100% reason was Elizabeth Bishop is kind of my gateway poet, my gateway drug as an adult, and the poem One Art, as we all know, is just amazing. So I also love that the filling station image is the logo, which is one of my other favorite poems by her. So it's just a great joy to be here. I'm going to begin with a new poem from the Book of Jobs, which was edited by the wonderful, fantastic Erin Murphy and is available, I believe, through One Art. It's a free online anthology that's just glorious. And I'm very thankful because when Erin put out the call, it made me decide that I would thought about jobs I'd had and was there anything that had been particularly interesting. And out of deep memory, I started thinking about the first job I ever had, not babysitting money, not that, but sort of the job. So here we go. And about 50 years ago, it's amazing what you can remember. Underage. Who is she? The teenager with a mission, fighting on the battlefield of capitalism with only babysitting money. Why does she pause on the corner of Harvard and Washington at small leaded green windows above the empty window box? The flower shop sign reads, "Under construction," like her. And suddenly she becomes an employee, an arranger of orchids with pussy willow, curator of terrariums, and her favorite, anthologist of the centerpiece. She learns the commerce of water and sand as if she knows the ingredients for an exemplary life. What she hears of sex of surrealism from the older workers, women approaching their mid-20s, surprises her. You can sweet talk your way into Salvador Dali's Suite at the Ritz, or marry a silver-haired colonel to become rich and unhappy. But what shocks her most is when she murmurs, "May I help you?" and finds she can. Advise afternoon light, more jasmine, a blue planter. Another world is here, and it is hers. You're the first, you're the first audience I've ever read that to, so thank you. I'm going to jump a little bit. I was trying to think, do I have any poem that can kind of double as an October poem? And I found one. I am from Massachusetts, and my oldest friend, we've been friends since we were 9 years old, lives in Cambridge and is also a poet, the poet Jennifer Markell. And so I was staying with her, and that's enough. The poem is called Lady Apples. And I will just say one more thing. There is an apple, and if you look it up, it's called the Lady Apple, and everything in this poem is true. We couldn't help but buy them, lady apples in late October, inside Formaggio's kitchen. No bigger than the starling's egg or the cat's tinsel ball. How could they survive 5 centuries, alternately sweet, then tart, bright cream and scarlet, the apples of a dreamscape? Initially grown to fit inside a woman's bosom, a modern 16th century breath mint. These ladies, sequestering a bite-sized snack between their breasts, tucked in silk and brocade. Imagine the apples of Cézanne walking off the canvas. Imagine these women, incandescent in their kisses. To say that was really fun. We just spent so much time. I have an obsession with apples because they all seem to have a story and a history behind them. So I finally have a poem that is month connected. It's a first for me. Okay. Yeah, I just decided I'll end with a couple of poems from my most recent book, Blue Atlas, but I am going to give you some brand new poems. And it's scary to do that, but you took a risk coming here on a Sunday afternoon or morning, so I'm going to take a risk. And I'm really interested to hear any comments on the chat for these. This poem has 2 words in it that might be a little unusual, or I'll just remind you what they mean. Haram is the Arabic word for forbidden. And treif is a Hebrew word for forbidden foods. Things we may never do for Sadiq and Gozi. Things we may never do no matter what. No crisp bacon, no honeyed ham shall pass our lips. Not a kielbasa, nor a breakfast sausage, or even a bit of spam. We just say no to the Spanish prosciutto, the small circles of pepperoni with cheese. Double check the pie crust, that extra thick whipped cream. Why so many names for pig? Sadiq asks, as if someone is trying to trick us. The clandestine food truck and local waitress ganging up on the Muslim, the Jew. Together we brainstorm treif. Together we brainstorm treif. Read the small print that uncovers haram. Ice cream, candy corn, fashionable pork bellies, and gravy. Dear friend, at this, our first breakfast together, a stolen hour in a historic train station in Kansas City, we discussed gelatin, Skittles, the horror of gummy bears. This code we share, a language that joins us. Our eggs cooked over easy in laughter, no cheesesteak, no beer. It's amazing what the mind connects to, right? That breakfast happened 3 years before I wrote that poem, and that line of his, like as if someone's trying to trick us, is a direct quote. He gets credit for that. Okay, keeping an eye on the time. This next poem, if anybody speaks Greek, you can tell me whether I'm at least a little bit close to this. But the title is, I'm looking at my notes. I kept practicing it. Um, Lia, and that's not quite right, but it means olive. And I could go on about that because it's also sort of the female of the prophet Elijah, so the olive is prophetic, but I'll just read you the poem. I hoped that olive would grow in alchemical stature, able to renew itself forever. The oldest olive tree in the world, 3,000 years, still fruits on the island of Crete. The Greeks build an olive tree museum, pass laws to protect living history. Olive blossoms float like cloud arias, jasmine scented in honey, lemon cinnamon touched with musk. We wake to a sunrise of laughter, women shaking a blue cloth, catching olives beneath the tree canopy, their voices still alive inside of me. Outside Hebron, I celebrate summer harvest with a family who, of course, become friends. Where are my Palestinian friends now? Their trees. Last week, Israeli soldiers murdered 10,000 olive trees, split them from their roots, a genocide of trees. The shimmering branches, the quiet groves, their bulldozed bodies break me. If olives hold the core of culture, then what will become of their people, their land? Let these trees lift up, spectral now. Let them offer themselves as a kind of resistance, an olive branch rising unseen. So weird to be reading you these poems that are like, I mean, they're not new in that I wrote them yesterday. They're new as in I've been working on them for 2 months and they're finally like hopefully ready to be heard, but it's still weird. Okay, I think we have two more, 2-minute warning. Um, Last spring, I read about a 14-year-old boy who was shot and killed outside of Ramallah. The town he was living in was called Termis Aya. His name was Amir Rabi, and you may have heard this story. He had dual citizenship, Palestinian and American. A poem is called The Cloud of Unknowing for Amir Rabi. What if the boy returned as candy floss, lived on as an airbound sweet with a passion for pleasing his mother? What if he floats again along the terraced orchards near two friends, filling their sacks with the delicate almonds of early spring? And what if, rather than a soldier's bullet planted in the middle of his forehead, he returns as a wild poppy on the hillside, a pink dragonfly? As the teen walks home to his parents, an almond-crusted mess, he's already planning his future. Cotton candy skies, a family company with headquarters in Saddlebrook, New Jersey, America, Amir's hometown. He will create miniature cotton candy machines for barbecues, weddings, every kind of family gathering. Amir dreams as he rises over the mountains of pink floss, ignores the almond trees where he was targeted, fatally shot. Some nights, Amir still WhatsApps with his brothers in New Jersey. Hey guys, hear me out. I'm learning the texture of trees. I always think after I read something what I should have said to you beforehand, which is that there were just a couple of articles about him, and the only real detail was that he wanted to start a cotton candy rental machine company. And I just thought, given all this other things about him, it was not questioned whether the Israeli soldiers had murdered him or not. They took credit for it. But the little detail about the cotton candy machine, I went down the rabbit hole of learning all about cotton candy. Okay, I think I'll just close with this Elizabeth Bishop poem, which seems quite suited for today. Um, and it's in my most recent book, Blue Atlas, which you can only sort of kind of see because I have a background on. And I think I'll just read it and thank you all for being such a fantastic audience. Compass. Elizabeth Bishop often kept a compass in her small jacket pocket. A little known fact about the poet, who fell regularly from a delicate map of sobriety, lost her keys entire weeks, even countries. Could a compass, initially used in fortune telling, invented in the Han Dynasty, buoy her with its divining arrow, its quivering and irregular heartbeat? What are the coordinates of the soul? Mist-filled or incandescent? Briny as ocean air or rugged as Oro Preto? Bishop could lose herself in the architecture of a birdcage, the clack of wooden clogs. But with binoculars strung round her neck like miniature islands, a compass in her hand, her brokenness could orient her. Her brokenness could console her like a harbor chart or a naked pink dog. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was wonderful, Susan. Thank you. I I feel like people maybe expect that I'm an Elizabeth Bishop scholar, and perhaps I should be, uh, maybe one day. But there's not that much overall that I actually do know about Bishop, and so I find uh, people like to share things about Bishop with me or in my presence, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm learning something, which is very exciting. Um, Another thought is I feel like you just gave a pretty good master class in writing political subject matter that doesn't feel like the sort of ephemeral political poetry that doesn't really hold over time. These feel much more lasting, apart from being powerful in the here and now. And then you also shared the poem mentioned talking about what's trafe, and I don't often think to reference my own work, but in my collection Meatless, which is partly about vegetarian lifestyle, it's also touches on that I was raised in an Orthodox Jewish household, and so there's a bunch of poems about uh, like keeping kosher, and there's one called Verboten that has like just like a whole list of like things that people don't eat, and sort of kind of like playing on that idea. But it is just an interesting subject matter across cultures, sort of like what people consider food and don't consider food. And anyway, um, I digress. But that was an incredible reading, Susan. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Shawn Aveningo-Sanders. Shawn is a multiple Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee, and has also received awards from the Oregon Poetry Association. I'm going to say this wrong, maybe. Benicia Literary Arts. I feel like that was close. As well as winning the inaugural El Dorado County Poetry Slam. She is author of What She Was Wearing and her newest collection, Pockets, from Moonpath Press, which was a finalist for the Concrete Wolf Chapbook Contest. Fun fact, I think that's one of the few contests that I ever entered, maybe like over a decade ago, but not been someone to try to enter contests very much, but I think I gave that one a shot once. Over 250 of Shawn's poems have been published worldwide in such journals as One Art, Cho, Contemporary Haibun Online, Calyx, McQueen's Quinterly, Timberline Review, Quartet, Sheila Nagig, Cloudbank, and recent best-selling anthology Love is for All of Us. Shawn shares the creative life with her husband in Oregon, where together they run an independent press, The Poetry Box, which if you don't know, you certainly should, and I will link to it in the chat. Shawn, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Mark. It is such an honor to be here today with you and to be reading with two absolutely stellar poets, Susan and Faith. I'm humbled, to say the least. I did just return home last night from the Oregon Poetry Association conference, so this is just a wonderful weekend filled to the brim with poetry for me. I thought I'd start my reading with my first poem ever published in One Art. And it's always such a thrill, when you get accepted to a journal that you really admire. And this poem had the additional thrill of being nominated for a pushcart prize. So, as a double thank you to Mark, here's the flyer. The flyer. I want to be as brave as a 14-year-old cheerleader. A flyer, they call her. How she rubber bands her body, taut in a split second, then tossed up into the stadium's stratosphere. How in midair she strikes her lightning quick arabesque, then softens her adolescent sinew to fall into her partner's cradle, always landing feet first on a faded rubberized track to cushion the impact that's bound to ricochet up through her young knees. I want to shake off pain like a pom-pom. Let the sun irradiate my fears and turn them into glittery gold streamers to cheer me on. I can almost hear the fans chanting from the stands. Yes, you are enough. You got this. You can. And since I'm currently mourning the end of tomato season, here's another one from One Art. Tomato. She kneels before her altar, this modest garden box of leftover lumber, filled with entangled varietals of heirloom fruit, each orb lush with a blush a bursting, begging to be plucked. A plant's desire to share the juicy, tangy sweet that it alone could offer in this sacred moment under a blistering sun. When she carries one to her kitchen, she brings generations worth of struggle and adaptation, not unlike its Cherokee namesake, its purple bruise of heartache, and a fullness ripe with the tenacity of survival. A single slice brought to her tongue with a trail of salt left on the cutting board. Her tears fall for this harvest, her love no longer beside her, to relish this bounty together. And so the next three poems I'm sharing are from my brand new book, Pockets, from Moonpath Press. And it's an eclectic collection of poems connected by a single thread. Each poem has a pocket. And I'm grateful that these three poems were first published in One Art. Labels. Have you ever noticed the women who linger in the canned food aisle? How they stand there in their comfortable shoes, wearing a modest shade of pink lipstick to perk up an exhausted smile, scrutinizing and scanning each label: cans of cream corn, stewed tomatoes, garbanzo beans, and soup. Is it the calories, allergies, price? After weeks in the ICU, he is finally coming home. I pore over every prescription protocol, key in each doctor's number into my phone, make copies of his patient implant card to tuck into my wallet. I buy one of those easy to read neon pill caddies so he never misses a dose from the armada of pills fighting for his failing heart. I scan a list from my pocket. How long have I been standing here holding this can, reading this label? I get it now, what it means to join the sorority of salt seekers. Our faithful mission, rooting out sodium dangers at every possible turn. I understand these tedious, loving acts and the monumental task to save the hearts that beat in unison with our own. And of course, we'll do anything to save the ones we love. This next poem is about my dad and when I donated a kidney to him. It begins with this epigraph: fully aware that there is no inadequate answer, we offer a tattered, inadequate little bouquet of language. George Bulgare, Poetry Town. 2 questions. When they learn he lived for 2 years after the transplant, they always ask me the same 2 questions. Was it worth it? Do you have any regrets? And every time I am gobsmacked. Such audacity slaps me like February wind whipping the Mississippi under the old Eads Bridge. And then I see the innocent curiosity in their eyes. How could they know? About that day we spent at Butterfly House, Dad's first summer sporting my kidney like a new pair of Bermuda shorts. How when he tried on the silly caterpillar cap, I giggled like a 4-year-old little girl. Or the home run taste of Budweiser at our last Cardinal game when Holiday rounded third. How when confessing his mistakes, he found forgiveness in my eyes and could finally drop the stone he carried for so long in his heart pocket. Or how success of the operation isn't measured by mere years, rather by grains of sand, each one adding to the castle a girl built with her dad. How the low tide of his passing could never wash that away. An old man walks into the room. With him, the scent of my father's aftershave. So, Mark, I just have to say, if anyone ever doubts the importance of your work as an editor, I just want to share that after you published that poem and it went out into your daily newsletter to thousands of people, I received the most wonderful email from a woman I don't even know who said she was going to the DMV to add the organ donor sticker to her driver's license after reading that poem. And so I guess poetry can literally save a life. So thank you for helping me reach out with that poem. Here's another poem in one art about my dad. I close my eyes. I close my eyes and I see him wearing a pale green hospital gown, ready to receive my kidney. A forever hug and our "see you after the surgery. I love you." I close my eyes and I see him wearing a black rented tuxedo, fighting tears to usher me into my new life as a wife. I close my eyes and he is sitting in the front row of my dance recital, beaming for his little hippity hoppity tap dancing frog. I close my eyes and he is telling me in that heartbreaking tone how I've disappointed him. I close my eyes and he is wearing a smile of approval and boasting how proud I make him. I close my eyes and he is wearing that crocheted beer can hat I made for him in Girl Scouts, trying to put the worm on the hook at the father-daughter fish rally. I close my eyes and he's holding his pink swaddled girl for the very first time and handing out cheap cigars, announcing to a room full of strangers, he has a new tax deduction. I close my eyes and he's naming me after the first girl he ever kissed. I close my eyes, I close my eyes, I close my eyes. I keep trying to forget the memory that comes rushing back when my eyes open. The one where he's wearing a dark suit in a casket, and I'm tucking a goodbye poem into his pocket. And for my last poem, I'm going to switch gears to some newer work. I'm a big admirer of David Kirby's poetry and his masterful braided poems. And so here in this poem, I attempt to braid together the election, the pandemic, and what was believed to be a volcanic eruption in 6th century Europe. The poem is called 536 AD. It begins with an epigraph. The sun gave forth its light without brightness. Procopius. It's election night. I don't want to imagine how life in America could be 536 days after Donald takes his seat, round and resolute at the ceremonial desk, his blunt-tipped Sharpie in hand, ready to sign life as we know it away. They say it was the worst year in history to be alive when in 536 AD a volcano erupted and a fog of ash blanketed Europe to Asia. An 18-month-long eclipse where men grieved their shadows from morning to afternoon as they stared up at the sky, pleading to their gods, "Why are you so angry?" The people had to endure 536 days absent daylight, wars that wouldn't cease, seeds of disease flourishing among fallow fields, the death toll climbing higher by the hour. Do you remember the refrigerated trucks, those makeshift morgues parked along New York streets? It took 536 days after disease paralyzed the world until I could visit my widowed mother. The bags under her eyes, a steamer trunk jam-packed with memories, her voice cracked over hot tea, spilling the details of the fall, the ventilator, the iPad goodbye. We've all seen the movies where beloved books burn to ash. Will we ever learn from our history? I read Humpty Dumpty and the Emperor's New Clothes to my toddlers, tuck them snugly into bed, and walk downstairs to watch the red wave roll in like a fog. 536 minutes after doom scrolling all night. I wake the children. They want eggs for breakfast, sunny side up. I reach for the refrigerator door where my world is a child's crayon sun, held up by two plastic magnetic letters, a blue A and a red D. Thanks everyone for listening. I want to give a shout out to Mark's poetry collection, Take Care, which is a beautiful collection of carefully distilled poems. Let's all keep putting art and love into the world. We need it now more than ever. Namaste.
That was a very sweet shout out at the end, Shawn. Thank you. And a really captivating, powerful reading. My goodness. That pandemic parade at the end definitely hit hard. Can tell from the comments everyone is loving the work and really moved powerfully. So just stunning all around. Somewhat at a loss for words. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And certainly last but not least, we have with us Faith Shearin. Faith is the author of 7 books of poetry, which include The Owl Question, which won the May Swenson Award, Telling the Bees from SFA University Press, Orpheus Turning, which I believe won the Dogfish Poetry Prize, Darwin's Daughter, SFA University Press, and Lost Language from Press 53. Also, her poems have been read aloud on the Writer's Almanac, which I think might actually be how I first learned about Faith's work. As I've said before, or admitted, I suppose, in more recent times, the Writer's Almanac was a pretty strong influence on shaping my taste in poetry, and I'm sure that comes through in what gets curated in One Art. So yes, Faith's poems have been read aloud on the Writer's Almanac by Garrison Keillor, of course, and included in American Life and Poetry. She has received awards from Yaddo, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Fine Art Work Center in Provincetown. Her essays and short stories have won awards from New Ohio Review, the Missouri Review, the Florida Review, Literal Latte, among others. She's the author of 2 YA novels, Lost River 1918 and My Sister Lives in the Sea, which won the Global Fiction Prize judged by Anthony McGowan, and it has been published by Leapfrog Press. Faith, thank you so much for being here. Faith, you're still muted. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I almost never read, but I love you guys. I love One Art. And I love the poems of Shawn and Susan, and I'm grateful for the chance to read a little. I'm super reclusive. I haven't given readings for the most part. Until this fall, I gave one for one other group. So you guys are special. I'm not going to read that many poems, but I went in September and spent a couple weeks with my parents. Who are very old. They're 80 now. And they just bought an RV and they're riding around in it. So I'm going to read you some poems about my mom, who's been a subject of my poetry for years and years. She's a wonderful, eccentric person who doesn't like housework and just was making paintings all through my childhood, which I think gave me the big idea that you could make art. I'll start with my mother's van. My mother's van. Even now, it idles outside the houses where we failed to get better at piano lessons, visits the parking lots of the ballet school where my sister and I stood awkwardly at the back. My mother's van was orange with a door we slid open to reveal beheaded plastic dragons and bunches of black, half-eaten bananas. It was where her sketchbooks tarried among abandoned coffee cups and science projects. She meant to go places in it, camp in its back seat, and cook on its stove while painting the coast of Nova Scotia, or capturing the cold beauty of the Blue Ridge Mountains at dawn. Instead, she waited behind its wheel while we scraped violins, made digestive sounds with trumpets, danced badly at recitals where grandmothers recorded us with unsteady cameras. Sometimes now I look out a window and believe I see her, waiting for me beside a curb, under a tree, and I think I could open the door, clear off a seat, look at the drawing in her lap, which she began but never seemed to finish. I just want to say that I love everybody's poems and I don't know how to press the buttons with the love sign, just so you guys know that. Okay, so a couple more about my mom. I'm just going to be thematic. It's easier to follow. How about my mother pretending to move to Alaska? This was one of the favorite things I observed about my mom growing up, is that she had this daydream of moving to Alaska, and it was a way that she got through a lot of things that she didn't enjoy. So my mother pretending to move to Alaska. For 30 years, my mother pretended she was moving to Alaska. She owned no maps of the state and did not try to visit. She lived on a hot island in North Carolina and could not drive in the snow, owned a thin winter coat, no boots or gloves. My mother survived things she hated by pretending she was leaving: baby showers, years of teaching in classrooms where children built fleets of paper airplanes. She told me sometimes about Alaska, a place where she would live so far from the neighbors they could not maintain an interest in her business. A place where there was so much snow she would not ever mow the lawn. On bad days, my mother imagined who she would be in that eternal winter: rugged, adventurous, warm, because she was not thin. My mother was going to Alaska, and if she never got there, it was because her Alaska was not on any map and could not be reached by boat or bobsled. Her Alaska was a blizzard of privacy and imagination, its borders hidden or revealed by the snowdrifts in her mind. She's just a very good subject, my mother. Okay, I'm going to read you just like two more poems. This one, Entropy, was in my very first book of poems. It was in the Owl Question, and I'd really just started writing about my mom then. And this one got read on NPR. It was like in an anthology when I was young. And I remember my grandmother calling to say, like, did you really have to share the fact that your mom can't keep house with the whole country? Which was awesome. Entropy. My mother's kitchen was asleep. Our family didn't gather there. We lived and ate in our bedrooms, hypnotized by the blue lights of TV. But in her kitchen, pots and pans floated belly up in the weak old water, and our garbage, smiling, outgrew its bag. All of this very slowly, as if in a dream. My mother despises what can never truly be done, so she doesn't care for cooking or cleaning. If one cooks a fine dinner, one must wash the dishes. To cook a fine breakfast, to wash the dishes, to cook a fine lunch, and so on. My mother explained this one afternoon in the basement, where the laundry grew around us like trees. Our jungle home was a metaphor for my mother giving in to entropy. When wine spilled on the couch and we laughed as the stain unfurled, we were embracing chaos. When we fell asleep with the lights on and the TV talking, we were the weeds in our own garden. My mother's kitchen was haunted. Her refrigerator leaned to one side and made only brown ice. Her biscuits were as flat as plates. But none of this mattered because we were forgetting ourselves even as we were becoming ourselves. We pursued truth, beauty, the meaning of life, while my mother's kitchen discovered decay. All this unraveling, moldy food, newspapers piling up to the ceiling. We loved each other like that. bananas going black on the counter, the lines coming in around our eyes. Okay, just thank you. One last poem. How about if I'll read you a COVID poem? This one's new-ish, and it's about COVID, which it feels really nearby to me and also really far away. The Myth of Crowds, it's called. Our descendants will ask to hear stories about crowds, and we will tell them how we once sang in choirs, shoulder to shoulder, how we sat beside our piano teachers, our bare fingers reaching for chords. We will explain how we gathered in ballparks and stood in line at concession stands for hot dogs or bags of salted nuts. We'll speak of bowling balls and shared desserts, of kissing in train stations while our luggage mingled, of schoolhouses where we shared water fountains and lunch tables, trading a ham sandwich for a candy bar. We will describe movie theaters with their flickering images, planetariums where we considered the vast backbone of night. They will ask if there were really buses and bathhouses and dormitories, if it's true that we ate at buffets and swayed together at rock concerts. They will not believe. We lingered in cafes, smoking, flocked to museums and operas and zoos. They will ask us to tell them again how we blew out candles at birthday parties and threw rice at weddings, how we shook hands with strangers and paid for our coffee by pulling coins from our pockets. Thank you.
Unbelievable, Faith, and thank you for making an exception and coming out to read for us. It's greatly appreciated. You're not the only poet who has said that they tend to not make public appearances, and I do understand for any number of reasons why that would be, but that was amazing to hear you read. And so it gives me great pleasure. So I'm sure everyone else too is thrilled. I love that entropy poem, and to spare my mother's memory, she would probably appreciate that I don't say too much about why that is. But it's very relatable. And so thank you to all of our readers. You all such amazing readings, to the extent that, I get that feeling of like, why do I even bother writing poems? And that's always a good thing. That's always good when people write so well that you question like why you're even playing the game. I feel like that's a sign that, that you've won the day. So thank you so much. I will stop recording.